Okay, bye y'all. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you have a good trip. I love entertaining, but when people come over for a week, it just gets exhausting. And how is it possible nobody wanted to watch a bad movie? Well, at least Beakley was entertained. I just hope he wakes up from his food coma soon. Well, Gus, well, Rose, I guess it's about time to get back to what really counts.
Christmas my true love gave to me.
Deck the halls with boughs of holly, the tidings we bring.
Not Christmas already. I just got over one holiday. I need a breather. You know what? If we're going to do Christmas, I'm going to do a Christmas horror movie. Let me check my database, see what I got. Gremlins. Good movie, but not yet. Krampus. Did that last year, so no. Christmas Horror Story. Sounds intriguing, but maybe a bit too difficult right now. Oh! Here's a Christmas horror movie from 1989 called Elves. Well, since the 1980s have seemed to be the unofficial genre of this season so far, why don't we do that? Hey y'all, I'm Derek, and welcome back to Bad Movie Friday Night. And tonight, we're looking at a 1989 horror movie, Elves. Elves is the brainchild of writer-director Jeffrey Mandel, whose filmography is filled with lackluster exploitation films. When it was released in 1989, it received a very limited theatrical release, and was universally panned. It didn't receive a large-scale release until 1994, when it was distributed to video rental stores. And to go along with this Christmas movie that's filled with little devils, I'm making a traditional Christmas party food called Devils on Horseback. Now, you probably never heard of them before, but they're actually a traditional hors d'oeuvre served at Christmas parties since the Victorian era. So what I've got here is about 6 or 7 chicken livers, which I'm just going to wash and clean. I know it sounds nasty, but stay with me for this one. So, let's get started. Our movie begins with a group of girls running into the woods to apparently perform blood magic for, I'm sure, very important reasons.
We now convene the Sisters of Anti-Christmas.
Yes! Let's summon the devil, because we absolutely hate Christmas. Wait, what? Well, the lead character, Kirsten, cuts herself on a stone she took from her grandpa's room. And since blood being shed totally ruins the mood for a pretend black mass fighting Christmas, the girls leave, completely missing an ominous hand rising from the ground. Oh, when will the kids learn that raising Cthulhu is never the answer? When Kirsten returns home, and while she's returning the stuff she took from her grandpa, he comes in and slaps her. Then she goes to the kitchen, where her mother tells her, as punishment, she's taking all the money out of Kirsten's savings account. Because she totally has the authority to clean out a bank account that's not in her name. Well, then we meet Kirsten's little brother, Willie, and Kirsten's cat, Agamemnon. Well, Willie gets attacked by the elf that just came out of the ground.
Like a ninja, only like a gremlin.
And no one believes him. And this scene only exists so the mother can blame the cat for the attack. Yeah, they're just setting up the fact that the mom is evil. Well, the chicken livers are now clean, and I just dried them off with a paper towel. And now, I'm just putting them in a cast iron skillet with about 2 tablespoons of butter. And I'm going to season them with some cayenne pepper, and some salt. And then we're just going to let them cook through. Well, the next day, Kirsten is at work at the snack bar in a department store, where her friends are ragging on her mom. At the same time, our headline actor, Dan Haggerty, comes in looking for a job.
Come on, Hugh. I can buy my own coffee, and you know I don't need any donuts. I need a job.
Wow. Dan Haggerty is sleepwalking through this movie. At the same time, Kirsten's mom kills the cat and buries it because she's evil. Well, while Kirsten's on break, she goes and gets sexually assaulted by the department store Santa, which in turn leads him to be killed off by the elf. Later, at home, Kirsten is frightened by the elf, and because of that, we learn that there's a lot of tension between Grandpa and Kirsten's mom. The next day, Dan gets a job as the new store Santa, and because of that, we learn he used to be a detective. Because obviously those two go hand in hand. Meanwhile, back at home, Grandpa gets visited by a group of shady guys, where we learn Grandpa may have a past. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, Grandpa is German. Just remember that point. Well, the chicken livers are done, so let's get to the next step. Okay, so all I did was let the chicken livers cool, and then I cut them into little chunks. Then, I'm going to take one of these prunes that I've already butterflied open, put a piece of chicken liver inside the prune, set it off to the side for later. Okay, so it turns out Kirsten and her friends have a totally awesome idea of meeting a few guys for a slumber party in the department store Kirsten works for. Well, I guess we all need goals in life? At the same time, Dan goes to the library to look up a symbol he found on the floor where the original store Santa died. Afterwards, he returns to the store, finds the girls, and they decide they are not going to do anything about each other. But then Grandpa's associates from earlier come in, and between them and the elf, Kirsten loses both of her friends. This is what happens when you think rebellion is having a sleepover in your workplace. Oh well. What I'm doing now is I just split some pieces of bacon in half, and now I'm flattening it slightly with just the back of my blade. Then I'm going to take one of those liver stuffed prunes, and I'm going to wrap it up. Now, just to make sure everything sticks together, I'm going to take a toothpick and just run it through like that. Then I'm just going to set it on a baking sheet for later. Well, the cops come into the store, Kirsten and Dan get fired, and Dan takes Kirsten home, where Kirsten's mom jumps to the only logical conclusion.
You were taking drugs, weren't you? You were all taking drugs.
No, honestly, that's the only logical line uttered in this movie. Well, Dan decides to go see the guy who wrote the book he's been reading, and the guy explains that the symbol Dan is interested in is from elves, and elves have a pretty recent past.
But about 50 years ago, there was a group that believed in elves that did one hell of a lot of killing. The Nazis.
So, elves are evil, and the Nazis worshipped them? What? Anyways, then Dan goes to see another person who apparently knows all about elves, who explains that the Nazis genetically engineered elves to house the genes to create the master race, which can be transferred to a virgin when they consummate their relationship on Christmas Eve. But that still doesn't answer a few questions. Where did the elf come from? This guy goes into great detail about how the Nazis genetically manipulated an elf to basically be a gene bank for the master race. But he doesn't explain where the elf comes from, why it's in America, and in particular, why is it in this forest right next to where Kirsten happens to live? I mean, I'm all for ambiguity, but these are some major plot holes that are going on here. Alright, so back at Kirsten's place, Grandpa tells Kirsten to pack a bag as they need to get out of the house before it's too late. While she packs, Kirsten's mother comes in and they start fighting, where Mom lets out a massive secret.
The man in the study is your grandfather. And your father!
And your brother is your brother, and your nephew, and your cat is your cat, and your dog. But all honesty, ew. So, Grandpa explains that he was forced to impregnate his own daughter in order to create the perfect female counterpart to procreate with the elf. Obviously, this is a bit much for Kirsten to take, so she retires upstairs to try and figure this out. This section of the movie is a whirlwind. It's like they realized that they forgot to give any exposition until the last act, so they tried to fit it into the last 15 minutes. Ugh. Well, the movie's wrapping up, so let's wrap up our Devils on Horseback. Now, I just put aluminum foil on a baking sheet because I find it's easier to clean that way. And we're just going to put these guys in the oven that I've already preheated to 375. And we're just going to cook them until the bacon gets crispy. Okay, so Mom takes a bath and gets killed by the elf. Dan shows up and demands Grandpa tell Kirsten how to kill the elf. He does, saying that they need to stop the elf, otherwise Kirsten will give birth to the Antichrist. The Nazis come and attack, and Dan and Grandpa sacrifice themselves so Kirsten and Willie can escape. They run into the forest and get lost. But that doesn't stop the last remaining Nazi from finding them, who in turn gets shot by the elf. Kirsten sends Willie to find the stone Grandpa said they needed to kill the elf, and the elf moves in on Kirsten. Willie comes back with a stone, and Kirsten stabs the hole the elf came out of the ground with it, which apparently has the reaction of an atom bomb, because the movie ends with Kirsten and Willie sitting on the ground in the middle of a burned forest. Actually, the movie ends on a still shot of Kirsten's unborn baby, but I ain't gonna show y'all that. But the movie's done, and so are our Devils on Horseback. We're just gonna pile them up high on a plate and serve them with a little bit of sour cream on the side. So, final thoughts on this film? Well, the best part of this film is in fact the story. Think about it. An elf that's been genetically engineered by Nazis to impregnate a virgin and bring about the master race. How is that not the perfect storyline for a bad movie? As for everything else, it's just bad. The acting is subpar, the writing is trite, the pacing is slow, the camera work is haphazard and blurry, the score is a mixture of melodramatic soap opera and casino slot machines, and the directing is just downright lazy. All in all, it's a terrible movie that's actually a lot of fun to laugh at. It's readily available on YouTube, so check it out when you have the chance. So gather up your friends, make some fast, tasty food, and enjoy this silly little movie. Well, thanks for stopping by, thanks for tuning in, and come back later for some more Bad Movie Friday Night.